And now we return to your regularly scheduled Generation 2 starters programming. Yeah, you guys had fun with detouring to Quagsire last week, but I'm glad we're back on track with Meganium, because honestly, if this thing didn't get its video now, I doubt it would get voted in again. It's clear from the comments that you guys don't like Meganium as much as the other starters. Now why is that? Sorry it's not a fire-breathing dragon or a ninja frog, but sometimes you need a docile plant dinosaur too. Zane tells me Chikorita was actually his first ever Pokemon with Pokemon Gold, and I guess I share that sentiment as well, because when I first got Pokemon Silver as a kid, I just picked Chikorita because it was green. But for real, I get it. In the world of Blazikins and Blastoises, Meganium sort of struggles to stand out. It's honestly even less decorated than Bayleaf, and that Gen 2 sprite wasn't doing it any favors in looking like a peaceful beast. And of course, other than using it for my first Pokemon Silver playthrough ever, I'm sure we all have fond memories of Ash's Chikorita, who was really attached to Ash. And I mean really attached to Ash, to the point where she was even jealous of Pikachu. And all because Ash was just trying to switch Chikorita out to win the battle. And that's right, we got an entire episode of the anime dedicated to Chikorita getting over her jealousy of Pikachu. But hey, at least Chikorita was grateful to Ash for rescuing her, unlike a certain fire lizard we know. Well, I guess he did love Ash until adolescence. Also, my next favorite memory of it is, that funny gif of Charizard holding it back with its foot. But hey, maybe that's all different in battle. Let's find out how good was Meganium actually. And in this video, we'll be covering these competitive formats. Meganium is that rare starter Pokemon focused on defense, a trait only shared by Blastoise and fellow grass starters Serperior and Chestnut, until Serperior got contrary, but I mean, that's for another day. At first, Meganium's stats are fairly respectable. It's like Celebi if you subtracted a few points from everything that wasn't defense or special defense. And with Celebi safely locked away in Ubers in Gen 2, Meganium actually had plenty of time in the sun. Synthesis provided an instant recovery, which, when coupled with dual screens or Leech Seed, could make for one of the more reliable supporters in the game. Resistance to some of the more common attacking types, namely electric, water, and ground, meant that Meganium could be a long-lasting tank that also aided its team. And if it so wished, Meganium could also make use of Swords Dance to try and run an offensive set. While Meganium's power was pretty much strictly outclassed, Sword Dance didn't really make Meganium a fast, hard-hitting sweeper. It just boosted its power to the level that it could fulfill a unique niche as a self-sufficient attacker. Although it lacked a stab physical move, Earthquake and Body Slam filled those slots quite nicely, especially considering the paralysis chance, and Synthesis kept Meganium topped off so it could keep dealing out damage. While the support set didn't have quote-unquote counters as such, it likely wasn't going to do much damage itself, so anything that could resist Razor Leaf and his super effective would do well. Like something like fire types. The Swords Dance set was walled completely by Skarmory and other flying types, chief among them Zapdos and Skarmory, so it could only come out once those threats were scouted and eliminated or paralyzed by Body Slam. Meganium failed to break into overuse, where the metagame was simply so defined that many good Pokemon couldn't run with the best, but it was solidly one of the better borderline Pokemon in Gen 2, so that's actually pretty good. I did not expect that. And then Celebi got unbanned a generation later. The only thing Meganium could do better than Celebi was attack physically. Celebi had better stats, arguably better recovery with Recover, it also had Leech Seeds, dual screens, and it had a special boosting in Calm Mind, and dual stabs. Along with the arrival of many grass-resisting behemoths like Salamence, Metagross, and Jirachi, Meganium was pretty properly screwed in Gen 3. Victory Bell had taken the same mantle as Swords Dance Grass type, so even down in underuse, Meganium ran pretty much the only set it had, Synthesis and Screens. Meganium's one new trick came with Counter, which let Meganium potentially turn the tables on an unsuspecting attacker due to its high defense. This paired especially well with Light Screen, deterring physical attackers without the investment needed from Reflect. Meganium was too slow to succeed effectively, making it both predictable and somewhat lackluster in underuse, where it struggled against other grass types, any fire types, and muck and other poison types. Things got even worse for Meganium in Gen 4, as its competition became even steeper. While Celebi had been the bulk of its problems, Tangrowth's arrival meant Meganium could never hope to compete as a physical wall anymore. While it did beat out Tangrowth quite handily on the special side, Meganium had another rival in the form of its predecessor, Venusaur. Contained in Borderline in Generation 3, Venusaur became one of the dominant underused Pokemon in Gen 4, with its stats extremely similar to Meganium. Their move pools may be different, but Venusaur played the role of tanky grass type with some utility quite well, snatching Meganium's bit as a synthesis user for itself and adding on Sleep Powder. Meganium still had its fair share of utility with screens and the added aromatherapy, but it tended far more towards the passive. While Venusaur could potentially disrupt teams with Sleep Powder and its superior attacking stats, Meganium was usually relegated to strict support unless the odd Sword Dance set pops up, which is also outclassed by Leafeon, unfortunately. Now don't get me wrong, it was an okay support, especially with Light Clay not fueling its dual screens. It just didn't really move the battle anywhere. Sure, setting up screens was nice, as was healing status conditions, but you were also giving the opponent time to potentially make a big play, and Meganium's lack of offensive momentum, unless specifically spec'd that way, meant it wasn't great at stopping the opponent. Its sole grass typing was nice to protect from ground types, but it was a rare team that didn't have a fire type that could handle it. Even Earthquake didn't dissuade them much due to Meganium's low power. Venusaur, Leafeon, and Tangrowth, also known as Meganium's better versions, all beat it straight up with their more specific investments in attack or other utility. Meganium went to never use in Gen 4, rarely seen at any level of play. Weatherwords didn't do anything kind to Meganium either. Its only benefit from Sun was added power to Synthesis, as its Dream Road ability, Leaf Guard, was never released. Now the chances are pretty low that Leaf Guard would suddenly boost Meganium to relevance, because even if immunity to status was a nice perk, it's not that game changing and it's not really enough to bring a Pokemon like Meganium to prominence. And especially since Meganium could run aromatherapy anyways. Although I guess if it did have Leaf Guard, you wouldn't really have to do that, but that's besides the point. Meganium did receive an addition to its now suspiciously small move pool with Dragon Tail, which let it phase in addition to its other forms of support, which is a good thing for Meganium given that Superior could use dual screens far more effectively due to its higher speed. Now Meganium's move pool may be shallow, but it's actually not bad per se. The problem is that as a strict support set, especially with those now mediocre stats, it becomes less desirable compared to the higher tiers that tend to focus on offense. And just like in the previous gen, it can't really move the battle on its own. Not to mention that there are better phasers and screeners already. And also that there are other grass types who have abilities that actually directly benefit from the weather, like Pokemon with Chlorophyll. Though on that note, Rain and Sand is typically more desired over Sun anyway. As always, Meganium struggled to find a niche for itself due to its lame stats, and in a metagame filled with bug, flying, and fire type moves, its 100 defenses were frequently lackluster. Meganium was even outclassed by not fully evolved Pokemon like Tangela, who boosted their superior defense with Eviolite, an incredible ability in Regenerator, and all those supporting moves that made Tangrowth a potential beast. Now listen, if you're getting beat by a walking ball of blue spaghetti, you know things are bad. And at this rate, I'd rather try Eviolite Bayleaf than Meganium, although that's probably outclassed by Tangela too. And Gen 6, I don't have much to say here. Meganium had a decent support move pool as always, but it was outmatched no matter which way it turned, even in the lowest tier in the game of PU. Tangela with Eviolite continued to be better physically, freaking Roselia beat it in special defense, Gourgeist had a more useful typing, and Quilladin, the awkward adolescent stage of the Chestnut line, had better support because of Spikes and Taunt. It's crazy and a bit sad that Meganium ended up that terrible, but really, what would you use this thing for? Any single niche it might have had was underwhelming anyways, and also snatched from it frequently by its fellow grass starters like Superior or Venusaur. Oh yeah, Quilladin. Alright, now maybe I get why you guys didn't vote for Meganium last week. It seems like even Game Freak hates this thing. It has nothing to set it apart. At least it got Petal Blizzard at Gen 6, but come on, throw us a bone here. Or a branch? I don't know what Meganium likes to chase, besides Ash. And as for VGC, yeah, we couldn't really find anything. There are so many more grass types to use other than Meganium, even with Celebi out of the metagame, honestly. Not to mention how many flying types are running around that meta too. Like even with Leaf Guard, using Meganium over grass types that do more damage or have more double utility just seems kinda lackluster. Especially when some of those better grass types consist of redirectors like Amoonguss, or of grass types that actually have mega evolutions like, I don't know, these two. And from here you see why niches are important. Because if you're outclassed and you don't even have a niche, then what do you really have? And that's it, so how good was Meganium actually? Yeah, you guys already know. Meganium sucks, I'm sorry. I was really pulling for this sweet starter for someone who doesn't necessarily need to look cool to be good, but yeah, it sucks. Those well-rounded stats may have been intended to make it easier for a beginner player to use, but what they actually mean is that it has nothing to make it a contender. God, even in its own game, it's hard to use. In a normal playthrough, it loses straight up to the first two gym leaders. Meganium seems destined for not greatness, badness. It's bad, and it hurts to say that, honestly. It's bad, which is a shame because it would be one of the best Pokemon to get a Mega Evolution, because then we call it Mega Meganium. Now how great does that sound? I guess Game Freak just hates grass-type dinosaur Pokemon with stuff growing on its neck. Thanks for watching, everyone, and as always, if you liked the video and you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to False White Gaming for more weekly Pokemon content, and of course, as I always say, comment on what Pokemon you want to see next. Also, thank you so much to our patrons for continued support of our videos, and thank you to all of you as well. And follow my crew on the social media platforms, and that's all I got. See you next week, everyone.